Hey guys, today I'm going to talk about the Plainfield Ordnance Model 71. It's a cool little obscure handgun from the early 1970s, produced in very limited numbers, and to me it's interesting for a couple reasons. First off, it shoots 22 long rifle and 25 ACP out of the same gun, so I think that's kind of interesting, but the most intriguing part about it really is the history. It's kind of cloaked in mystery and secrecy in a way because they're produced in such small numbers, nobody ever talks about them or has heard anything about them, it seems like, and there's a rumor going around, and it's really pretty prevalent. I've seen it repeated by reputable auction houses and just all over the place, that this gun was actually designed as a CIA assassin spy gun. That the CIA approached Plainfield in the late 60s and asked them to design a gun that was well made, rugged, that would be able to shoot multiple calibers and have sort of throwaway parts that you could take apart easily, and that it was going to be fielded by CIA agents out in Vietnam, Cuba, other communist hotspots sort of the day as a spy pistol. So it's a pretty cool story. I'm not really sure how true it is, and honestly I've come across another account online that probably seems a little bit more accurate. It's a lot more mundane for sure. It just basically describes it as being a gun that the company produced in the 70s. The patent was applied for in 1971, hence the name, and it was later marketed in 1973, and just pretty much a blah story. But it's kind of cool to think about. Maybe this gun did have some sort of CIA espionage history behind it, even if it's not extremely likely. But it's kind of a cool rumor to think about anyway. Cool story. The gun, in any event, like I said, it's a 22 long rifle, 25 ACP, and I'll show you that in a minute, but it's single action only. It's all steel. The Model 72 came out a little bit later, and it had an alloy frame, which made it a little bit lighter, but it's really built extremely well, and honestly, it's a really nice gun overall, so it's kind of a shame that no one's ever heard of them, because they're really an excellent piece, and honestly I think they're also a great value for the money because of that, which I'll talk about a little bit later too. So as far as the appearance goes, I usually talk about that for a minute in my videos. Finish is parkerized, and I believe I've seen one that had sort of more of a stainless look to it, so I'm not sure if they were all parkerized or not. It has nice walnut grips, nice wood there. Overall the gun is pretty blocky and square. It's got these tall sights coming off it, which sort of also makes me wonder if it was really considered to be a CIA shadowy espionage type of gun, but it's just overall it's kind of blocky. I brought up my Beretta as usual to show you a size comparison on the gun. And of course this was produced in the 70s or the late 60s was when it was designed, so guns weren't as small as they are today. You didn't really see guns the size of an LCP or something like that back then, so maybe this was considered small, but still it's not tiny. Gives you a little bit of an idea of how big it is. So it's small, but it's not tiny really. The grip is much longer than the barrel. The barrel's pretty short in there. Let's see what the thickness is like too. The bread is pretty thick, and it's not super skinny either. But the real issue is the weight, which actually in my opinion is a good thing. It weighs about 23 ounces, which may not sound overly heavy, but for the size it just feels really compact and dense. It just feels like it's built like a tank because of that solid steel frame. Everything in it is steel. Because of that, again, I'm not sure it would be ideal for being wielded by agents out in the jungle somewhere, but as far as just a collector's piece or a shooter goes, it makes for a great gun because it's just so heavy and solid feeling. It's really well built. Everything's put together really smoothly. Probably not the best for concealed carry or anything like that, but so I'll talk about the ergonomics of the gun for a minute now. You'll notice that the grip is pretty straight. The gun overall is pretty blocky and everything, but it doesn't really feel too bad in the hand. My finger does overhang a little bit, which I've gotten so used to shooting my PPS with the 6-round magazine in it that I don't really even notice that anymore. But the grip is somewhat short. Barrel's even shorter, which gives it a bit of an odd look because the grip is longer than it. But feels good in the hand overall. Feels, like I've mentioned, set nice and solid and heavy and everything. There's a hammer up top. It's single action only. You cock it back. That feels good. In order to engage the safety, the hammer has to be back. So right now it's in fire mode. You can see that red there. And if you move this back, there's a little green in there. It's kind of hard to see in here, but that means that it is unsafe. What the safety does is it basically just prevents the hammer from hitting the firing pin. So if I pull the trigger, it doesn't go forward as far as it would without the safety on. And then to disengage the safety, it does have to be cocked still because of the way it works in there. It's got a couple sights. I'll show you that sight picture. They're fixed in a way. The rear sight moves. I'll show you that in a second too. It moves to let you disassemble the gun. Overall, the ergonomics are pretty good, I think. Feels good in my hand. Go ahead and show you, let's see, the healed magazine release down here, which is kind of unusual. You don't usually see that in American guns, first off, and especially guns produced in the 70s. Peel magazine release. Right now I've got the 22 magazine in there. Which, speaking of, I will show you how to change out the calibers now, because that's really one of the more interesting features of the gun. And I'd already kind of alluded to this earlier when I was talking about the rear sight, because if you notice, it's not actually a fixed sight. It's pinned to the slide with this little pin here, and it's spring-loaded, sort of like a seesaw. It's just a lever. And what you do is to disassemble the gun and switch out the calibers. Make sure it's in fire mode, the safety is off. Cock the hammer. Then you're going to push down the front of this lever, which lets you push out this sort of plug thing. And once that's out, which looks like this, from there you just ease the slide off, and you can see the insides now. What you have is a recoil spring and guide rod, nothing too exciting there. Fixed barrel, which right now I have the 22 barrel in there, and then this bolt type of thing. So I'll show you this bolt. You can see there's the 22 because it has the firing pin is sort of off-centered, and it's on the rear too, like that. And the barrel, like I said, it's fixed, and I've got a spent casing in there which I'm going to use for demonstration later so I don't mess up the firing pin. Barrel's another part that you're going to change out the caliber. And you just pull that out, lift it out. There's this little pin sort of that fits in there. So like I said, it's really well engineered. It just all fits together really cleanly and smoothly. I guess while I've got it open too, since I'm changing calibers, I'll show you the box and everything. So you get a nice shiny red box, and in the box there's manuals and paperwork and stuff like that. Which, by the way, if anyone actually has a Plainfield and you're missing the manual, just send me a line and I'll be able to send you a PDF or something, a scan of it if you want. But just kind of got a parts list and some instructions and things. The actual contents of the box, though, comes with a spare barrel in 25 ACP, 25 auto it said. You get a magazine, which the magazine design is actually pretty nice too. They're both the same basically for the 25 ACP and the 22 LR. It's just obviously the size is a little bit different, but they both have a really nice sort of button on the side. You know, a lot of 22 magazines have a really harsh button and it wears your thumb down after a while, but it's actually pretty nice in these magazines. And then you also have the 25 ACP bolt part, the final piece of the puzzle, and you can tell it's that because it's got the firing pin in the center for the center fire cartridge. So if you're going to swap it out, which I'm not going to, but to put it back together, I'd put the 25 ACP barrel on, which right now I'm putting the 22 back in. So put that in, put the bolt back in its place, which is sort of like there. And that kind of falls out a little bit, so it's a little bit tricky sometimes to get it all to stay together. Put the recoil spring and guide rod back in, which is a little bit tricky actually to do it like this. And then once it's in place, you just have to kind of hold that back. This part gets a little bit tricky. It's good to have an extra hand sometimes. Let's bring that up. Slip this in. Let the rear sight go back down, and you're good to go. I could have a 25 barrel in there if I wanted right now. Of course, I just put the 22 back in. But that's how you change the calibers, and they both shoot out of the same gun. So it's pretty cool. As far as shooting goes, it's actually extremely pleasant to shoot. The trigger's not bad at all. It's single action only, and there's really not much creep to it or anything. Moves a little bit, and it's kind of heavy, but once you get to this breaking point, it's pretty crisp. I don't feel too bad about pulling the trigger because remember I've got a sprint casing in there. But I'll show you the trigger pull again. It's not bad at all. A little bit of movement, and then it is somewhat heavy. It's probably 6 or 7 pounds or something, but it's alright. The gun is extremely accurate, at least in my hands. I've always been pretty surprised at the groups that I can get out of it, especially for having such a short barrel and just being short in general. 25 ACP is just as accurate as 22 long rifle. It does seem to like the higher velocity ammo, and I've mostly had good luck with CCI mini mags. Other stuff, I've tried a few other kinds of ammo and it sometimes gets jammed, at least in 22 long rifle. 25 ACP has been 100%, but the 22 it seems to like CCI mini mags for me. But it's extremely accurate because of the weight, the 23 ounces, and just the density of it and everything. It really just soaks up recoil. It's like shooting nothing at all in both calibers, which kind of makes sense. The 25 ACP is just sort of a center fire. 22 long rifle, you know, it's pretty weak, pretty wimpy. But yeah, overall shooting it is just a blast. It's really accurate, you know. Never have to deal with the safety, so I don't even worry about that, the poor ergonomics of that. So as far as criticisms go, really I don't have a whole lot. The gun is put together extremely well. It's built very well, engineered pretty cleverly. I like the way it comes apart and everything. Everything fits together really nicely. It's real smooth. The way the slide moves and everything, it's very smooth. Everything locks together tightly. Criticisms would probably just be that it's heavy, so it's not really something that you could pocket and conceal carry very easily, which I don't know why you'd want to. It is 22 long rifle, 25 ACP, but for its size it is pretty heavy. Also, one thing to be careful of if you do have one of these and you're taking it apart is while the slide is off, never manipulate the safety at all, because there's a little ball and spring in there, which the manual warns you against. But if you move it while the slide is off, the ball and spring detent that's in there, it'll fall out, and I think it's pretty hard to put back together. That probably wasn't designed as well as it could have been, but it is what it is. I mentioned earlier that these guns are a great value for the money, and that's because nobody's ever heard of them, so nobody really charges very much for them. I have noticed in my blue book, though, that they're really undervalued. They listed, I think, as being like $150 or something like that for brand new in box with both barrels and everything. You know, that's really low. I've seen them go at auction with this whole kit and everything for about $450, $500, something like that, which is about right for the quality of the gun. But I've also seen them on Gunbroker for a lot less than that. And if you ever come across one for a decent price, you know, $200, $300 or something like that, definitely pick it up. I think it's a really high quality piece. It's been extremely reliable for me, and it's a whole lot of fun to shoot just because the trigger is pretty good, extremely accurate, soaks up recoil. Overall, it's just a really cool piece. As far as numbers produced, I'm thinking less than 2,000. I've been looking at serial numbers, and it seems like the highest I've seen is about 1,400 or 1,500, something like that. So I think they are pretty rare, and they're definitely not something I ever hear anyone talking about, so don't really know how many are out there. Rumor has it that government came around in the 70s or something and destroyed all the machinery because these were spy guns. Wish that were true. Might add some value to it, but otherwise it's just a cool story. And yeah, it's a Plainfield Ordnance Model 71. You can switch out 22 long rifle and 25 ACP, shoot them out of the same gun. It's a really nice gun overall, and definitely recommend them if you can find them for a good price. So, thanks for watching.